Listen here to the still small voice. Listen here to the highest consciousness among us. Listen here. I love what was shared at the beginning of this service about assuming positive intent. How many of us are naturals at assuming positive intent? Raise your hand if that's like pretty easy for you. Yeah. How many of us are not? Wow, more than not. Thank you for your honesty and your authenticity. There are times in my life that I wish I was more like you. In Unity, we have a spiritual practice around cultivating the positive, around self-accountability, around bringing in the light and bringing in more light and being the light. And part of that practice is looking at how we can assume positive intent. There are also some other experiences in this world, aren't there? Like, let's be real, right? You can just look at the news. You can look what happens in the lives of your friends and your family. You can look around you to see that there are some things that lack positive intent, right? And then if we look a little further, which oftentimes we don't want to, there seems to be some very negative intent some places in life and in some people, yeah? So what do we do with that in Unity? Does anyone know yet about the Unity practice? And, traditional Christianity has the belief in God and the devil. So the light and the darkness, good and bad. So how often do you hear about the devil in Unity? How often do you hear about the darkness? How often do you hear about the bad? Are you ready? How can Unity not teach about the devil and darkness? How can we do that? How can we have a spiritual practice around that? How is that possible? Look at what happens in the world. Look at what happens in some humans. Look at what's happening in my life. That might be what you say today, right? Whatever it is, point to it. Something that you've seen, something that you know about that can happen to people or happen to our world that you just can't reconcile it. It is evil. It is darkness. It is the work of something. Ugh. Something so horrific we don't even want to talk about it, right? We don't want to see it. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to acknowledge it, right? So how does Unity deal with that? Well, we deal with it by acknowledging our practice and the statement that there is one power and one presence, God the good omnipotence. One power, one presence, God the good omnipotence. Period, end of story. A little more to the story? Okay. So then how do we explain some of the other things? Now, in Unity, we don't profess that we have all the answers, and we don't profess that we can actually explain everything. If you want a church and a spiritual community where they tell you all of the answers, they tell you exactly what's going to happen to you after you die, they tell you everything about God, everything about darkness, everything about yourself, and you leave there with a book and a map, try traditional religion. Because you'll get it. But you're here because you listen to something within you, something different. You measure things against your heart. You have a practice of praying, meditating, and thinking, and you let no one tell you to stop thinking. Amen? And that's good. It can be scary, but it's good. Scripture says the law is written upon your heart. The law is written upon your heart. I believe that's something that we can trust. Unity teaches that God is everywhere, and also God is accessible within you as wisdom, as love, as your divine intelligence. How can Unity not teach about this darkness? Well, in unity, we do teach that there is one power and one presence. So when we see darkness, when we see things that we might classify as evil, when we see things like that, we acknowledge that it's an absence of the light. We don't have to candy coat it. We don't have to put it on an ice cream truck and drive it around town and say, look, it's good. We can acknowledge that there is hurt there, that there is a lack of what we know as God there, a lack of love, a lack of expression of that. But we don't act like it's powered or fueled by something that has dominion over us, over our world, over our minds, over each other, over our beingness. Because the only thing that has that dominion is God. So if I take a socket, and we use this example, we overuse it in Unity, but if I take an electrical socket, right, I can plug in a lamp and I can light the world, right? But what else can I do if I use some metal or something else? I can electrocute someone, yeah? Is that socket evil? Is that socket the work of the devil? No. In my consciousness, if I choose to use it in that way, it is a lack of light. I am not aligned with my beingness. My beingness is created in and of light. We are made in the image and likeness of God. God is not made in the image and likeness of us. We have free will and we have the ability to exercise that will. And you know what happens? When someone is separated, not in truth, because truth is God is everywhere present all the time, inexhaustible, abundant. But when we have experiences where we're separated from that, where there is harm, where there is darkness, where there is mistreatment, where there is abuse, where there is manipulation, where there is deceit, where there is lying, right? These things happen. Ugh. That is the absence of the activation of God. Someone not stepping in their power to activate God energy, to use that life and that light for good. But the moment we start exporting that power, and we put something up against God, saying, oh, there's God, but then there's this, and it's out to get us. You know, in some old folklore, there are some ideas about witchcraft, and one of the ideas is, I don't even like talking about this stuff. That's why you never hear about it. Who likes talking about this stuff? But there are some ideas in witchcraft. I know it from Larry Dawsey. He's a doctor that studies forgiveness work. Amazing work, and I studied him in college. But he talks about the conditions of like a curse or witchcraft kind of stuff in traditional society. And he says that it has to have three parties. It has to have the person doing it, the person that wants to apply it. It has to have belief in the person that is being affected by it. And then the third is there has to be some community belief around it. So I have to think it's possible, you have to think it's possible with me, and they have to think there's potential in it and it can happen. You want to defragment that a little bit and make that ghost a little less scary? I just use my God potential to believe in something beyond the one power and one presence, to separate myself from the good, to take my worry and to activate it rather than step into faith and put my faith in God. You just did that with me, thinking I could do something to you or you could do something to me that is beyond the scope of Godness, and you all thought, maybe this is happening. What did we just do? We prayed together. Where two or more are gathered, there am I in the midst of you. We just prayed together. We just stepped into an idea and believed in its possibilities. Rather than believing I just took a piece of metal and put it in an outlet. Anyone knows, everyone knows, if someone is severely abused, what happens? They either go on and they become an abuser or they heal. They often become an abuser. Why? Because they don't have support, light, or the injury was so dark, right, that it festered. They were alone. They didn't have belonging, whatever it is. Fill in the blank of what you've seen, what you know about the world and yourself. Now, how does someone not become that? They tap into God. They tap into the godness. There was someone good. There was someone godly. There was some light that came to them. There was wisdom. There was support. There was love. There was the harmonizing faculty, which Charles Fillmore called love. The harmonizing faculty came in and said, dear beloved, dear one, fear not, for it is your Father's great pleasure to give you the kingdom. Even this I will create good from it. Maybe not it's good that it happened, but I will create good from it because I am the one power and I am the one presence and I am in everything. End of story. That's how we get to those teachings. But what happens in the human condition? Sometimes it's easier to make God in our image than it is to believe that we're made in the image of God and we're making very poor choices. So what we do is we have a tendency as humans in this human condition to export the darkness, to export it. And sometimes collectively we export it so much that we press it into the little red man in the frying pan, that we press it into some idea that there is some power greater than or that could be up against the great allness, the great source of our being, the great creator, the great creativity that made your eyes and your nose and even the hairs on your head and knows that they're all counted, that there could be something against that rather than free will and stepping into our goodness, our godness, and into love. So we do it when a health diagnosis comes in. We might not call it the devil, but we call it darkness. We call it an absence of God. We do it when we see bad things happen. We do it sometimes even within ourselves when we can't be with what's in ourselves, the darkness that we sometimes experience. It's easier sometimes to project it outside and then act like it's getting us than it is to step into spiritual maturity and look at ourself, our systems, and our world and step up our game and become more like God rather than expecting a God that is made in the little image of how small the ego can be, how limited the darkness can be, what suffering, separation can bring. I was watching a video recently of a woman who was kidnapped. She had been online with an online person she thought was a little boyfriend, and she was kidnapped, and she was taken in. I won't give the details, but the nutshell is the worst of the worst you could imagine, living somewhere in the home, and and can you get it? You got the picture? You don't even say it in a sanctuary? Well, actually, maybe you do, because this is what her lesson was. But I watched the video, and I normally wouldn't watch things like this, because I have a desire not to see things like that, right? And she goes through her story and how horrific it was, and the room and the things and what was on the walls and all of this. And then she goes through how she kept herself alive and how she kept thinking about like the light in her parents and what they were going to go through if she didn't make it out. And she makes it out. But she said in every interview, people want to call him a monster. And she stops them. And she says, no, a monster is something bigger than us. A monster is something scary. A monster is something like powered by something, right? She didn't say all this. But she said he's not a monster. He's a little man. A little insecure, damaged, harmed human. And I listened to that. I listened to that. 1, 2, 3. She is breaking the cycle right now, saying, I don't believe in anything more than this being a very damaged person. He is not more than anything in a damaged person. And please stand with me and recognize, as a community, as a world, stop calling them monsters, stop calling them demons, stop calling them this. It is a damaged person. A knife in an outlet. And that's how we call forth the God. That's how we call forth the good. That's how we be with what is in our world that is so hard to see that when we see it, we want to turn our eyes away. But what happens if everyone turns their eyes away? What can you do to me from back here if I'm not looking at you, if I won't acknowledge that? And then what if we all believe it and it's terrifying? Versus if I stand here and I look you straight in the eye and I see that there is a grave absence of the expression of Godness, but I see through it. I see through it and I know the truth. The truth is you're born blessed. The truth is that we can assume positive intent because that is original blessing, is the positive intent. It was there once. It can never be destroyed. It will always be there. So even the activity of anything in the absence of that is an experience on its way back to God, is an expression on its way back to God. There is one power and one presence, God the good, omnipotence. Some people need a deep belief in hell, a deep belief that anyone that perpetrates, anyone that activates darkness or evil is going to go sometime later to some place where they're tied up and they get to suffer. But if we bring forth our spiritual maturity, don't we really truly know at the heart of our hearts that anyone that would violate or perpetrate another beloved of God, a creature of God, an expression of God, the world of God, is already in hell, has created a living hell? Someone that I trained many, many years ago as a prayer chaplain said to me recently, I forget exactly what I said to her, but we were talking about the idea of good, the idea of darkness, and she said, wait, the universe is neutral. When we're saying the universe good, the universe bad, the universe is neutral. You put your stamp on it. That's the same as electricity, right? Electricity is neutral. You put your stamp on it. Each one of us has seen things in the world, in our lives. I've seen things in this ministry that I don't want to see, right? What do we do with that? That I don't want to believe. What do we do with that? We've seen deceit, we've seen lying, we've seen false representation, manipulation. There's a danger in exporting that darkness. In the Buddhist practice, they talk about self-doubt. Self-doubt as being one of the 5 hindrances, and possibly the worst out of the 5 hindrances. Philip Moffat wrote an article on doubt, and he said, the Buddha taught that doubt is one of 5 hindrances that arise in the mind, clouding your judgment, limiting your ability to act, and causing great emotional disturbance. I sometimes call doubt the mother of all hindrances because when it is in control of your mind, there is not enough energy to engage. You find that you have no heart for facing difficulties. He talks about inquiring doubt. And that's a practice that we can use when we're sensing things, when we're feeling things. Use inquiring doubt to be curious, not to be afraid, but to be curious. He says, remember that doubt is not just a difficulty, it is also your ally. It is there to let you know that there is uncertainty so you can weigh your choices and be prepared for things not going well. Many times, doubt is suggesting that you should change or reconsider trust. Other times, doubt is your conscience telling you that something is wrong, something wrong is going on. It may be a violation of your values, an ethical wrong, or it may be a transgression against spirit. Can we have a healthy sense of doubt? Recognize its good side and recognize its darkness. And what are the tools to manage? Unity is about practical, positive spirituality. Has it felt positive today? I had someone come to a Unity Center for I don't even know how long, probably 2 years. And then after a Sunday service, they came up to me for prayer, and they asked that I could pray that the devil let go of one of their closest friends, and that the power of darkness, stop attacking them. And I prayed with them and talked with them about unity. I mean, how scary, how terrifying, how horrifying to have that thought. You're nothing against that thought, are you? He was nothing against that thought. Our prayers could be nothing against that thought. So we talked about it. And I promised myself on that day that even though in Unity we talk so much about positive practice and positive spirituality and how to affirm and how to love and all of this, but I promised myself that day that I would not ignore the other conversations that sometimes need to happen even in sanctuaries such as this one. And that was the day that I wrote the principles of unity, ours, in a little nugget and in a little nutshell, to say there is one power in unity. We believe there is one power and one presence, God, the good omnipotence. We believe that we are born blessed. So if someone's not here for 5 years before they get it, that we're not born in sin, we're born blessed. But how do we equip ourselves for this world and this experience of community? Because no doubt, raise your hand if you have ever seen something that you understand why people say the devil or the darkness are evil. Like you've seen something. Yeah. And if you haven't, just lean on the hand that's next to you, because they need you to see with them and to see them. So unity is about these positive tools. So what can we do? Because, so many perpetrators are perpetrators because people trust them. Because no one questioned them. Because no one stood up and stopped them. Maybe because it was so hard to believe. Maybe because they didn't want to know it was true. So let's talk about a spiritual practice that leaves us not in airy fairy land, but that keeps us grounded in, yes, the positivity, and grounded in God, so that we can bring more godness to the world around us and the world within us. The first one is stop managing everything. Beings of light tend to manage things that are not light-like. We try to make it better. We try to manage it. We try to fix it. We try to make it less painful. And when we do, it's harder to see because we're managing it. I had a principal once that had some patterns and habits that were not helpful, but all of the teachers stepped in where his dark sides were and made up for it. What was the end result? He stayed the principal for a lot longer than he would have been had we not been helping him and managing his weaknesses. So don't manage, just observe. And observation, mindfulness practice, observation, it takes non-attachment and non-grasping. We can't think something is some way in our head and then manipulate it out here to go, no, that wasn't a knife in there. Look, I can pop a firework on there. Here's a sparkler. Look. It's a sparkler now. Don't do that knife again. Not managing. The second is welcome more information. We all tend to think we want more information, that we're listening, that we're hearing. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. That came from a moment of recognizing I was not looking. I was not listening. I did not want more information. I was perpetrating alongside a perpetrator because I didn't want to see it. What is it that we don't want to see? If there is something that we so strongly don't want to see, we're not going to look at it. So whether it's a diagnosis and stepping into it and going, yes, I do want to know more. Whether it's a situation, a relationship, an occupation, something in our world, whatever it is, I am willing to see. Let us not be blind to what we don't want to see. Let us not close our eyes and turn away, but cultivate the faith and the strength within to know I am in God. I am strong. I am protected. I am in wisdom. I am in love. And I can see. Allow ourselves to want to know more. Allow ourselves to say, bring it on. Allow ourselves to be willing. Allow ourselves to be curious. Philip Moffat, the author of that article, said, once your nervous system realizes that you can handle the truth of how things are, you will gain more facility at recognizing doubt. You'll be able to hear it, to feel it. But so often we turn away. The third step is follow your instinct. Without being able to hear and see, we can't feel our instinct. But once we can observe and not manage, once we can see, then we make way to feel our instinct and to follow it. Follow your instinct. Doubt is here for a reason. It's part of our internal nature. It's part of even our bodies. You know how they say if you want to know what's really going on, like look at your body? Like if your anxiety is just racking up, it might be that your mind doesn't want to see something, but your body's going, there's a tiger. Right? They say the body never lies. Philip Moffat, in the article on doubt, said, it is critical to understand that once strong doubt takes hold of the mind, all of your other anxieties will join in. You may have a strong feeling of uncertainty about your job or your relationship. Either of these would be difficult enough to work on in their own, but if you watch carefully, you will see that your mind flits to other anxieties, large and small. To your health, your self-worth, whether or not to purchase a new car or whether to take a vacation, when to take a vacation. Once you start to observe it closely, you may realize how ridiculous the mind can be and how independent of your wishes it is. He goes on to say the antidote for doubt is faith. Faith from the view of direct experience of spiritual truth is not the same as belief. He quotes an author saying that faith is a verb, an active willingness to suspend judgment and to see for yourself what is true. You can overcome doubt by having faith in your teacher, the teachings themselves, the practice, or whatever inspires you to action. As you start to work with your doubts through mindful inquiry, you will find that you begin to have insights, and these insights will give you confidence. They are a verification of your faith that doubt can indeed be worked with. You will begin to know that you know, and that you don't have to be defined by your doubts. The fourth step is to develop community, to develop relationships, a web outside of you that you trust, connections that you trust. people that know you, people that stand with you, people that lift you up. And the next step, the last step, is to own your part. To own it. Again, if we have to export things, we can't see them. But when we own it, we know no thing can threaten me. Whether I feel that in me, whether it's my own choices that are leading me on a path, my own moments of being out of integrity or not honest or whatever it is. Like, I hate to say this, but someone here today is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, right? I mean, someone here today, listening online, wherever, is doing something that it's like the sweet spirit of Godness is saying, get help, be done with that. Come clean, tell the truth. Take the burden off. Someone here today is looking right at something and not wanting to see it for what it is. And it's still happening right underneath your thumb because we can't see it. That doesn't have to be scary. This is the human condition. It's the human condition. And if it's not happening here in this space, it's just right next door. So are we willing to stop being in denial of this part of life and owning it for what it is? So it just becomes a little thing that happens in the human condition. It can be corrected. Godness, God power can be applied, and it can be lifted up. And all things can work together for good. Rainier Maria Rilke said, "We have no reason to mistrust our world." Let's breathe into that. We have no reason to mistrust our world, for it is not against us. Has its terrors, they are terrors. Has its abysses, they are abysses. These abysses belong to us. They are the dangers if there are dangers at hand, we must try to love them. Remember, Charles Fillmore said love is harmonizing, harmony, the harmonizing faculty. She says we must hold to the difficult. Then that which now still seems to us the most alien will become what we most trust and find most faithful. Perhaps everything terrible is at its deepest being something helpless that wants help from us. Something helpless that wants help from us. There is one power, one presence, God the good, omnipotence. Will you say that with me? There is one power, one presence, God the good, omnipotence. I invite you to take a deep breath for meditation. We let go of things that we may not be able to see, that we don't want to see, and step into amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, Inhaling and exhaling. We breathe into the core of our being. The expression of God, of light. There is no thing too dark, too difficult, too complicated for God. God is the very wisdom active in this mind that is my mind now. God is the very love that is active in each heart. Every heart is God's heart now. We see those hearts beating. We see the divine harmonizing faculty releasing all sense of separation, all discord that can come from lack of understanding, lack of belonging, all suffering that comes when we do not stand in right action. So we take a deep inhale and a mighty exhale, committing ourselves in this moment to good, to God, to the light. Where there is darkness, let me sow light. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is injury, let me bring kindness, sweetness, compassion, and understanding. Where there is doubt, let me be the faith. Let me breathe into strength. Let me embrace curiosity. Where there is any appearance of lack, may there be a mighty quickening. A quickening of awareness, a quickening of capacity, an expansion of consciousness. So that the love that is infinite, that is everywhere present, can heal and reveal itself in the midst. Breathing together into the silence, the love, the wisdom, the light. Darkness cannot drive away darkness. Only light can do that. Hatred cannot drive away hatred. Only love can do that. By the power of this practice, may all beings have freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings know God as love and themselves as emanations of this love. May all beings know that we are born blessed and we are here to be a blessing. Namaste.